On my wedding day, my mother-in-law pulled my husband aside and whispered, "I paid for this wedding, so she'll obey me now." My husband laughed and said, "She knows her place." Smiling, I picked up the microphone and said, "Then you won't mind if I announce who really paid for this?" The truth left them speechless. I never thought my wedding day, the day I'd dreamed about since I was a little girl, would become the stage for a confrontation that would redefine my life. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I reclaimed my dignity from those who sought to undermine me. I met Daniel during our sophomore year at the University of Michigan. He was charming, intelligent, and had a smile that could light up the darkest room. Our connection was instant. We spent countless hours studying together at the library, sharing late-night pizzas, and exploring Ann Arbor's hidden gems. Over time, our friendship blossomed into a deep, abiding love. After graduation, we decided to move to Chicago together. Daniel secured a position at a prestigious law firm, while I began teaching English at a local high school. Our life was filled with love, laughter, and shared dreams. We adopted a rescue dog named Max, spent weekends exploring the city's vibrant neighborhoods, and supported each other's ambitions. It felt like we were building something solid, something lasting. Daniel's mother, Margaret, was a formidable woman. A successful businesswoman from an old-money family in Boston, she had high expectations for her only son. From our first meeting, I sensed her disapproval. Perhaps it was my middle-class upbringing in Detroit or my career as a public school teacher that didn't align with her vision for Daniel's future. Regardless, her demeanor towards me was always cold and dismissive. Family gatherings were particularly challenging. Margaret would often make passive-aggressive comments about my career choice, questioning why I hadn't pursued something more ambitious. She'd reminisce about Daniel's ex-girlfriends, highlighting their accomplishments and pedigrees. It was clear she didn't think I was good enough for her son. Despite her attitude, I tried to build a relationship with her. I invited her to lunch, sought her advice on wedding planning, and included her in discussions about our future. But no matter how hard I tried, I always felt like an outsider. Despite Margaret's cold demeanor, Daniel proposed to me on a snowy evening in Millennium Park, right in front of the iconic Cloud Gate sculpture. It was magical. He got down on one knee and, with tears in his eyes, asked me to be his wife. I said yes, and we celebrated with hot cocoa at a nearby cafe, dreaming about our future together. When we shared the news with Margaret, her reaction was lukewarm at best. She offered a tight-lipped smile and said, "Congratulations. I suppose we have a wedding to plan." Her lack of enthusiasm was palpable, but I chose to focus on the positive, believing that with time, she'd come around. Planning a wedding is no small feat, especially when dealing with a mother-in-law who insists on controlling every detail. Margaret offered to pay for the wedding, which, at first, seemed like a generous gesture. However, it quickly became evident that her financial contribution came with strings attached. She dismissed my ideas, overrode my decisions, and treated me like a guest at my own wedding. From the choice of venue to the guest list, Margaret had an opinion on everything. She insisted on a grand affair at a historic mansion in Boston, far from our friends and my family in the Midwest. She dictated the menu, the decor, and even the choice of my wedding gown, favoring designers that were well beyond our budget. Daniel, caught between his mother and me, often sided with her to keep the peace. He'd say things like, "She just wants the best for us," or, "It's important to her. Let's just go along with it." I felt isolated and powerless, but held on to the belief that, once the wedding was over, things would improve. As the wedding approached, my bridesmaids organized a beautiful bridal shower for me in Chicago. It was a day filled with love, laughter, and heartfelt moments. Margaret attended but remained distant, engaging minimally with my friends and family. Towards the end of the event, as I was opening gifts, Margaret presented me with a beautifully wrapped box. Inside was a family heirloom, a pearl necklace that had been passed down through generations in Daniel's family. I was touched by the gesture and thanked her profusely. However, later that evening, she pulled me aside and said, "I hope you understand the significance of that necklace." Wearing it symbolizes your acceptance into our family and the expectations that come with it. Her words felt more like a warning than a welcome. The night before the wedding, we held a rehearsal dinner at a quaint Boston restaurant. It was an intimate gathering of close family and friends. During the dinner, Margaret stood up to make a toast. She spoke about family traditions, the importance of heritage, and subtly hinted at the responsibilities I was about to undertake by marrying Daniel. She ended her speech with, "Sarah, I trust you'll uphold the values and standards that our family holds dear." The room fell silent, and I felt the weight of her words pressing down on me. I managed a polite smile, but inside, I was seething. Our wedding took place at the grand historic mansion Margaret had chosen. The venue was breathtaking, with its sweeping staircases, ornate chandeliers, and manicured gardens. As I stood in the bridal suite, dressed in my ivory gown, I took a deep breath, ready to embark on this new chapter. The ceremony was beautiful, albeit tinged with Margaret's overbearing presence. She had managed to insert herself into every aspect, from the choice of flowers to the seating arrangements. But I was determined to focus on Daniel and the love we shared. During the reception, as Daniel and I mingled with our guests, I noticed Margaret pull him aside. Curious, I inched closer, careful not to draw attention. Her words were sharp and clear. "I paid for this wedding, so she'll obey me now." Daniel's response was a chuckle. "She knows her place." My heart sank. The man I loved, the man I was marrying, saw me as someone who needed to know her place. The weight of their betrayal pressed down on me, but amidst the hurt, a spark ignited, a spark of defiance. I approached the stage where the band was playing and signaled for the microphone. The room quieted as I addressed our guests. "Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're enjoying this beautiful evening. I want to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude to someone who made this day possible." Margaret's face lit up, assuming she was about to be acknowledged. "To my parents," I continued, "who worked tirelessly, sacrificing so much to contribute financially to this wedding. Your unwavering support and love have been my foundation." "Thank you." A murmur spread through the crowd. Confused glances darted between Margaret and Daniel. Margaret's expression twisted into a mask of shock and indignation. But I added, my voice steady, "I also want to acknowledge someone who believed they could buy control and obedience. To that, I say, I am not a possession. I am not a pawn. And I will not be silenced." The room fell into stunned silence. I handed the microphone back to the band and walked off the stage, head held high. The moment I stepped off that stage, I knew something had changed. I could feel the shift in the air. Whispers rippled through the guests like wind through dry leaves. Some were shocked, some impressed, some clearly uncomfortable. But me? I felt strangely calm, almost free. Margaret stood frozen near the head table, her champagne glass trembling slightly in her hand. Daniel followed me outside onto the stone balcony that overlooked the garden. His face was tight, flushed with embarrassment and rage. "What the hell was that?" he hissed. I didn't even look at him when I said the truth. "You embarrassed my mother. She embarrassed me. She disrespected me, again, and you let her." His voice dropped lower. "You don't understand how things work in my family." And there it was. That line. That barrier I wasn't ever supposed to cross. I turned to face him. "You're right. I don't. Because in my family, we don't treat people like property." He opened his mouth to speak, but couldn't find the words. He stood there, speechless, and for a moment, I felt like I was staring at a stranger. I didn't sleep much that night. I stayed in the guest room of the mansion while Daniel took the bridal suite. Fitting. I woke up early and went downstairs, expecting to be alone. But no. Margaret was already there, sitting in the dining room in a silk robe, sipping coffee like nothing had happened. She looked at me over the rim of her cup with the same sharpness she'd used the first time we met. "You think you made a point last night?" she said. "All you did was make a scene. People are already calling and asking questions." I sat down across from her and stared her dead in the eye. "Good. Let them ask." She smirked. "You won't last in this family." I smiled, but it wasn't friendly. Then maybe I won't stay. She blinked, caught off guard for the first time. Before she could speak again, Daniel walked in. He looked like he hadn't slept either. I need to talk to my wife. Alone, he said. Margaret left the room without a word, but I could feel her eyes on us the entire time. Daniel sat down, rubbed his hands over his face, and said, "We can't start our marriage like this." I agree. He looked up, surprised. Then you'll apologize? I almost laughed. You think I should apologize? He leaned in, his voice tight. You embarrassed me in front of my family and friends. You laughed when your mother said I had to obey her. Do you even hear yourself? This isn't 1950. It's just how she talks. It's how you talk too, apparently. He didn't respond. Silence stretched between us until finally he said, "We need space. Maybe you should go stay with your parents for a while." And just like that, my wedding turned into a trial separation. I went back to my parents' house in Detroit. They welcomed me with open arms, but tried not to ask too many questions. Still, I could tell they were angry. Especially my dad. He'd always liked Daniel. Had trusted him. My mom kept saying, "I just want you to be happy." But behind her eyes, I saw worry. I was worried too. I thought Daniel would call. I thought he'd come after me, say he was sorry, say he messed up. But days passed. Nothing. Then something strange happened. While I was organizing my things and preparing to ship some of the gifts we'd gotten, I found a binder. It was labeled Wedding Budget, and inside were receipts, payments, contracts. Most of it I'd seen before, but one page stopped me cold. It was a bank transfer receipt. A large sum. From my father's account to the event coordinator. Confused, I showed my dad. He hesitated before saying, "We paid for the wedding, honey. Not Margaret. We didn't want you to feel small or pressured." So we said nothing. Let her take the credit if it made her happy. I sat there stunned. She didn't pay for any of it? She tried. But she wanted full control. So we covered the balance. Quietly, my head spun. Everything suddenly made sense. Margaret assumed she paid. Daniel never asked. He just went along with it. Later that week, while I was still at my parents', I got a text from one of Daniel's old college friends. Just 4 words, "You need to know." Then he called me. And what he said left me shaking. Apparently, Daniel had a second phone. One he used for business while planning the wedding. But it wasn't business. It was messages, flirty, suggestive messages with someone he used to date. She'd shown up at the wedding, sitting way in the back, and left right after the ceremony. She wasn't just a guest, his friend said. I think something's going on. I didn't want to believe it, but something in my gut said it was true. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. Within a week, I had photos, screenshots, dates, hotel receipts. It was all there. While I was stressing over centerpieces and place cards, Daniel was spending weekends with someone else. The betrayal was deeper than I thought possible. And the worst part? Margaret knew. In one of the messages, the woman said, "Your mom said you're only marrying her because of the family expectations." I get it. My world stopped. Everything I had believed was built on lies. And suddenly, the wedding wasn't a celebration. It was a trap. I didn't wait. I printed every message, every receipt, every photo the investigator had gathered. I put them all in a plain envelope. The next morning, I booked a train back to Boston. I didn't tell Daniel I was coming. I wanted to see the look on his face. When I arrived at our apartment, yes, the one I was supposed to move into after the honeymoon, his car was in the lot. My key still worked. He was sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone, completely relaxed. He looked up, startled. "Sarah." I tossed the envelope on the coffee table. "Open it." He flipped through the pages slowly, growing paler with every second. "Who gave you this?" he asked, trying to sound calm. "Does it matter?" He rubbed his forehead. "It's not what it looks like." Then explained the hotel receipts. The messages. Her. He said nothing. And then I dropped the bomb. "Your mother knew. She encouraged it." His eyes widened. "That's not true. She called me a possession." "You laughed. You told her I knew my place. Do you really think she wouldn't feel entitled to meddle in the rest of our lives? Still no answer. I'm not your mother's puppet. I'm not your backup plan. And I'm not staying married to a man who cheats before the honeymoon is even over. I left that same day. But I wasn't done. 3 weeks later, I filed for an annulment. Not a divorce, an annulment. I wanted it erased, like it never happened. And because there was clear proof of infidelity before the marriage even began, I had a strong case. But that wasn't the twist. When the court papers were served, Margaret called me. I let it go to voicemail. But the message she left, it changed everything. I warned Daniel not to play both sides, she said, her voice cold. He's ruined everything. Your little stunt embarrassed us, but you've made it worse. You were never supposed to find out about the trust. The trust? I immediately called my dad. He didn't know what she was talking about. So I called my lawyer. Turns out, Margaret had set up a marriage trust fund. A ridiculous sum, 7 figures, that would unlock on Daniel's 1-year wedding anniversary. It was part of some old family financial strategy. Marry someone, acceptable, stay married for a year, get access to the money. Only I wasn't meant to know. Because I wasn't supposed to benefit. I was supposed to play along. Host parties. Wear the pearls. Be quiet. Look good in photos. Then, when the year was up, Daniel would amicably divorce me. I'd walk away thinking it didn't work out. Meanwhile, he'd cash in. But I ruined the timeline. I blew everything up too soon. Daniel and Margaret had been planning it since the engagement. And here's the kicker, the reason it all unraveled. The woman he was cheating with, she found out about the trust, and she wanted in. When Daniel hesitated, she exposed him. That's how his college friend found out. That's how the messages got out. And that's how I found the truth. I went public. I shared my story, not all the photos, not the full messages, but enough. I didn't name names, but anyone in our circle knew exactly who I was talking about. Daniel's reputation at his law firm took a nosedive. So did Margaret's name in her business network. People started distancing themselves. The perfect image she'd built over decades cracked in weeks. My inbox was full of apologies. From friends who hadn't believed me, from former coworkers of Margaret's who said, we knew something was off. But there was still one final twist to come. A month after the annulment was finalized, I got a certified letter from Margaret's lawyer. It said that if I didn't sign a confidentiality agreement, she'd sue me for defamation. She claimed my public statements had damaged her estate value and that I had exploited Daniel's trust. But it was a bluff. My lawyer responded with one sentence: we welcome discovery. They never followed up. Instead, I heard from someone unexpected, Margaret's sister. Her name was Eleanor, and she lived in Connecticut. I'd met her only once, briefly, during an engagement dinner. She asked to meet for coffee. At that meeting, Eleanor told me something that left me speechless. There's a will, she said. An older one. Before Margaret became so cold. In it, she left a portion of her estate to her future daughter-in-law, provided she was still married after 5 years. That clause still exists. But she forgot to update it after all this drama. And she's furious about it. I stared at her. Why are you telling me this? She sipped her tea. Because Margaret has hurt everyone in this family. You're not the first. But you might be the last. I haven't responded to Margaret. I haven't spoken to Daniel. But I've kept the files, the recordings, and everything Eleanor gave me. They think I'm done. But I'm not. I spent the next few weeks thinking hard. I wasn't someone who believed in revenge. For most of my life, I just wanted peace and to be left alone to live it. But peace doesn't come when people like Margaret walk around untouched. People like Daniel get away with things because no one ever holds them accountable. And maybe, for once in my life, I needed to stop hoping for peace and make something happen. And yes, I'll admit this. I wanted them to feel even a fraction of the humiliation I did. I decided not to destroy them with lawsuits or threats. No, that's not how you bring down people like that. They don't fear money. They fear reputation. So I went back to the beginning. I wrote a letter. A long, calm, factual letter. No insults. No exaggeration. Just truth. With photos. With receipts. With a timeline. I sent that letter to Daniel's law firm partners, the charity board. Margaret sat on her country club board, the Boston Women's Business Association, her church pastor, but I didn't stop there. Remember that trust? The one Margaret created to pay out if Daniel stayed married a year? It was funded through the family's financial management firm. That firm had rules, clauses, ethical standards. I sent them the letter too. And I CC'd their compliance department. It didn't take long. The first hit? Daniel was quietly placed on indefinite leave from his firm. Not because of the affair, but because he didn't disclose the existence of the trust during a merger case. Turns out it counted as a conflict of interest. His name was scrubbed from the website within days. Margaret? She was asked to step down from the charity board. Someone anonymously leaked screenshots of the voicemail she'd left me. Not me, someone else. I still don't know who. But I smiled when I heard. The church? She wasn't banned, but her leadership role disappeared overnight. And at the country club, people began to whisper. Not loudly, but enough. The trust fund? Frozen. Pending review. Eleanor confirmed it over a quiet phone call. And just when I thought it was done, just when I thought it was finally over, I got a message from Daniel. It was short. Meet me. Curious, I went. We met at a public park bench, the same place we had our first picnic years ago. He looked thinner. Tired. Not like the confident man I once knew. I wanted to say I'm sorry, he said. I nodded. Are you sorry I found out, or sorry for what you did? He sighed. Both. We sat in silence. Then he added, you ruined everything. That's when I snapped. No, Daniel. You ruined everything. You let your mother treat me like garbage. You used me. You cheated. I was just the final straw. And now that the house of lies you built is falling apart, you want to pretend like I lit the match. But you poured the gasoline. He looked away. I stood up to leave, but before I did, I said, I'll be fine. I'll rebuild. I've got family. Friends. Dignity. What do you have now? He didn't answer. I moved back to Chicago. Got a new job, bought a small apartment, and started over. Quietly. No drama. Just healing. People reached out. Some told me I was brave. Some told me I was petty. I didn't care. Let them talk. I did what I had to do. I've since met someone new. Nothing serious yet, but it's different this time. I ask more questions. I look for red flags. I trust my gut. And I trust myself. As for Margaret? Last I heard, she's trying to rebuild her image. Good luck with that. And Daniel? Still jobless. Last seen living in a small rental just outside Boston. No trust fund. No high society events. Just him. Alone. Funny thing about falling from grace, it happens fast when you were never standing on solid ground to begin with. I learned a lot. I made mistakes too. I ignored the red flags. I let people walk all over me for too long. But I made it out. And I'll never let anyone treat me like that again. So yeah, in the end, they got what they deserved. And I finally got what I deserved too. Freedom.